What if the root of your fatigue, brain fog, or chronic illness has nothing to do with stress or aging? What if there's something deeper hidden in your cells that no one looks at? Especially the allopathic community, maybe? I don't know. But what if there's a place in your body that you can, if given what it needs, reset it towards health and wellness, or turn it off for dis-ease and dysfunction? Well, today we have world-renowned cardiologist, Dr. Thomas Levy. He's a double certified. Well, he's got so many credentials, we can't even name them. It would take too long to do this today in any class that we're in. And today we're going to be talking about mitochondrial health and the importance of mitochondrial health when it comes to health and wellness in our body. And so Dr. Thomas Levy is going to share the keys, some of the keys that we can do to restore our body.
And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here waiting for you.
Hi, my name is Lily McDermott, and I am a certified life coach, a certified holistic cancer coach, and the host of the Lillian McDermott radio show, Classroom. If this is the first time that you're in the classroom, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide natural ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life and language, and so that you can embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Well, as I said, in my desperation, I turned to Dr. Thomas Levy about a topic that I didn't think he would know anything about. But now that I think about it, he knows everything. I thought I was going to stump him, and I did not. So today I want to encourage you to get your paper and pencils or pen, because I know you're going to take lots of notes. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. Thomas Levy is here to do just that. Welcome back, Dr. Levy, to the classroom. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. Although you've talked about it before, it just didn't hit until we had our last conversation about it. So thank you.
Well, glad to be here as always, Lily.
Well, I thought I was going to stump you. So I'm going to give a little background. I've been dealing with a recurrence of Epstein-Barr, and I've been doing a protocol for over a year. And the last blood work that I had done, which was probably a couple of months ago, towards March, end of March, the numbers had gone up and they need to go down. It was like over 150. So I just reached out to Dr. Levy and I said, okay, I know you may not know anything about Epstein-Barr, but I need to ask you what you think about it. Boy, did he have a lot to say. And not only that, 3 weeks after I started this protocol, my blood work came in. Not that I should have done a blood work at that time, because usually you have to wait 6 weeks to 6 months to do the testing. My blood work went from 150, that early antigen testing for the Epstein-Barr that they're like monitoring my numbers, to 85.6 in 3 weeks. So I had to call Dr. Levy and said, we need to talk about this on the air now that I get understanding a little bit more. And Dr. Levy, I think you were pleased, right? You were saying, do you remember what you said back to me when I said it worked?
Yeah, well, I don't remember specifically, but of course I was pleased. I never want to be wrong.
Well, you actually said something like, oh, so I'm validated or vindicated or something like that. I'm not just a whack job or something like that. But,
Well, it's always good whenever you have any sort of protocol for any particular condition is to have an objective, trackable laboratory value associated with or because of it. Because so many things in medicine and around the world, protocols are, oh yeah, my headaches are better. Oh yeah, I have less joint pain. Oh yeah. And that's fine. If somebody feels better, that's fine. But it doesn't mean really anything with regard to being confident about promoting any protocol for anything unless you can see the objective changes along with the symptoms, the subjective changes.
Well, you knew, I mean, I've been fighting that protocol in many ways because one of the products that you talk about is methylene blue. And every time you talk about methylene blue, I just the blue tongue, the messiness, the dyes, all that stuff would come to my mind, and I'm like, I don't think I'll ever do that. And I remember saying to you, I know you said something about methylene blue, and I said, well, unless they come up with a pill form, and that's when you said there is a pill form, and that changed everything. That changed everything. I started using it. Not that I am I don't have anything to do with them, but and neither does Dr. Levy. We don't make anything out of it, but this is the methylene blue that I'm taking. But it's not just the methylene blue; it's a combination that I want to talk to you about. And I know that you've talked about this in the past, mitochondrial health and ATP and all that stuff. But until the student is ready, the teacher appears, or you don't hear it the same way. So talk away, share about this protocol. How did you stumble upon it, or have you known this all along?
Well, no, I can't say I've known it all along. I mean, each of the supplements I've been aware of. You know, the combination is perhaps something more recent in the last year or two. The thing is in all my research and writing, etc., it really comes down to two things that not only support and sustain, but actually give you good health. And that is when you counteract the primary negative factor in each cell causing disease, and that's elevated calcium. We've talked about that. And then when you have something else that primarily supports the generation of the most important energy delivering substance in your body, ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So when you're able to knock down the thing that causes most disease, along with the one agent where if you normalize it, you're pretty much assured of having a normal cell. You're attacking it from two different points of view. So to that point, then, what I call the Super 8 supplements, we've divided it into 4 and 4. And the first 4 strongly oppose and normalize calcium levels inside your cell. These 4 are vitamin C, magnesium, vitamin D, and vitamin K2. The thing is although the mechanisms are unclear, as oxidative stress goes up inside a cell, the calcium goes up. And as calcium goes up inside the cell, the oxidative stress goes up. So they support each other. But the important thing to take away is that there is not a single disease of any type, a single intoxication, a single anything, where the cells involved have normal calcium levels. They all have elevated calcium levels. And when you can bring those calcium levels down, you begin to normalize the oxidative status of the cell. Now, vitamin C, we've talked a lot about, and the more the merrier, as they say. Magnesium, we've talked a lot about, and magnesium is especially important because I personally don't think there's anybody, adult at least, any adult on the planet that has a completely normal magnesium status. Some are less deficient than others, but we have so many toxins consuming so much magnesium, such limited magnesium in our diets that we're just never going to get there. You know, there's some things that we can talk about to approach that, but it's something that everybody needs. And in fact, I call of those 4 supplements, there's really the big 3, and that's vitamin C, vitamin D, and magnesium. Everybody doesn't have enough of those, and everybody needs it bad. Other supplements, you can make a stronger argument that maybe they're not as necessary or completely necessary, depending on your unique disease, your unique economic problems. I mean, these things cost money, and a lot of people can't afford them. So that's when you have to start to winnow them down and try to get to the formulation that's best for you, both in terms of your health and in terms of your pocketbook.
Yeah.
So the magnesium and vitamin D are especially important with regard to calcium because uh, they regulate how much calcium you should bring into the body, not this excess dairy, not the calcium supplements. Those should never happen. But we do need calcium. We just need it in the proper, continuous, low grade amounts.
Yeah.
Otherwise, something that's good for you becomes highly toxic. And then vitamin K2 is very well recognized for helping to mobilize calcium deposits. Calcium should never be depositing in your body. Okay, the only place it really should be to any degree is inside your bones. Roughly 99% of your calcium should be inside your bones. But the problem is, and this gets a lot of people off track, is so when you have osteoporosis, you lose calcium and lots of other stuff, but you lose calcium from your bones. And so they say, oh, well, then I'm calcium deficient. No, your bones are calcium deficient. The rest of your body has a calcium excess. So osteoporosis, when it releases all the calcium, feeds the excess calcium elsewhere in your body where it shouldn't be accumulating and it shouldn't be concentrating. So that's the first step, those four.
Well, I want to go back to magnesium. I
All right.
believe you shared a statistic that the people that that are calcium deficient, like 85%, will eventually end up with a stroke or can prevent it by having a stroke or heart attack by increasing their magnesium. Can you say that in a better way? That there's a
Well,
deficiency.
magnesium is probably the single best regulator and normalizer, if you will, of the calcium status in your body because it's the reciprocal relationship. If you have a high calcium level inside your cell, you have a low magnesium level. And when you're able to get the magnesium up, the calcium goes down. It's a straightforward, fixed reciprocal relationship. And the reason for that is you have proteins that lay across the cell membrane called calcium channel proteins. And these facilitate the uptake of calcium inside the cell. So they facilitate and regulate the calcium concentration inside your cell. Well, magnesium is a natural calcium channel blocker. So when you take enough magnesium, you slow and to a great degree even stop the new intake of calcium inside your cells, so that then the other calcium extruding or eliminating mechanisms can proceed unimpeded, and you just start to bring your calcium level down by no longer bringing in new calcium. Now, this is important in what you said about stroke, etc., is the two things that feed heart attack, stroke, cancer more than anything else is increased oxidative stress where the disease is arising, along with excess calcium. We have lots of studies that show, for example, in women, that when women get mammograms, characteristically, almost all the time, any new areas of cancer formation are largely detectable because they have what's called microcalcifications inside those. So they show up like little bright spots along with the little irregular lump. And in a similar fashion, when you have increased oxidative stress inside a blood vessel, that also facilitates calcium deposition and the evolution and development of an atherosclerotic plaque until you eventually block it off. So, in that regard, although they're all important, magnesium is just, you can't live without it. And you can't prosper without adequate amounts of it. And there's just no exceptions to that rule at all.
Thank you for that, because a lot of people are misguided by that. And when you hear that 85%, I mean, Dr. Lee Cowden has come in, another famous cardiologist, come in and says, 85% of people that have heart attack or stroke are magnesium deficient. We need to take note on the importance of that. And anytime I hear from you and Dr. Cowden as well, never take calcium, because that's the calcium the plaque that causes that calcium score to go up, and that's the wrong kind of calcium. But we're not here to talk about calcium, death by calcium or anything to that effect, but so this is the first four that you say are the vitamin C, magnesium, vitamin D3, and K2. Those are your first four that you recommend, but you also, because I already take all those, you said, okay, so the next four, let's do those. And that's what I'm taking right now that I believe has been responsible for bringing down or to bringing down my numbers with Epstein-Barr recurrence.
Sure, and as you say, we weren't here to talk about that, but it's also important to realize none of these things can really be properly addressed in isolation. They're
Absolutely.
all completely interactingly positively. I mean, so it's good for the sake of organizing things in our brain
Hmm.
in terms of categorizing them and going through them, but they're all, I mean, we have such simplistic understanding of biology. I mean, we just, I think the more intelligent you are, the more you realize how ignorant you are, is basically all right.
Amen. Amen
Yes.
to that. Yes.
So the other four, as I mentioned earlier, address ATP production. And once again, I'll just briefly mention to people who are maybe not familiar, is ATP is your most important energy delivering substance in the body, and it powers many, many, many different metabolic pathways, enzymes, and other chemical reactions. So it's kind of like you have two things inside the cell that want to interact with each other and do a chemical reaction, but they don't inherently have enough power to do it. And it's only when ATP links up with them that the reaction can proceed and metabolism can be normal. So, and at a very simplistic level, but realistic level, I mean, if you have low energy, you have low ATP. I mean, there's no way around it. Conversely, if you have absolutely normal ATP inside your body, your energy is always going to be optimal. So it's a simple but critical way to monitor those things to see where you're going. All right, so with that in mind, we have the four other supplements. First thing to do is to try to understand, and let me tell you, I am not an expert in biochemistry. Hey, if somebody catches something I don't say just right, mea culpa. I mean, I was no biochemistry genius. I try to simplify things not only for trying to explain them to people, but for so that I can remember them myself. You know, when I look at scientific papers that have uh, 10 or 15 different abbreviations in each paragraph, my eyes just roll up in the back of my head and I go on to another article. But that's how they write it. Now, so in this regard, then, what regulates ATP production? Well, you have the cell. Nearly, not nearly, all ATP production takes place inside the cell. And of those areas, the area that has the most far and away are subcellular organelles called mitochondria. They're scattered throughout the cytoplasm, and they have a very unique structural arrangement. Now, some people might have heard the terms Krebs cycle, etc. These are biochemical sequences, basically, and I'm really oversimplifying both for myself and for anybody listening. The Krebs cycle is basically your body's way of utilizing the glucose that the insulin pulls into your cell and then uses that glucose to break down and metabolize through a sequence of reactions till you finally get to something inside the mitochondria called the electron transport chain. And as the name implies, you're shuttling electrons from one step to another step to another step to another step until it reaches the end of that transport chain and powers an enzyme called ATP synthase. When it finally gets to that point in time, ATP synthase turns on and you start producing ATP from this load of electrons that you initially got from the Krebs cycle and then got loaded up at the beginning of the electron transport chain. And in the process of each step, more energy is generated until you finally get down to the end of the cycle. So with that regard, now one thing then that I think most people realize, even if they're not chemical scholars, is that when you have a chemical reaction, you have different things being acted upon. They're the substrate. Substrate A works on substrate B to produce substrate C, and things are consumed in the process. So if you have only a certain amount of substrate A, you're only going to have a certain amount of substrate B and C because you use up all the substrate A. So you need to continue to provide new quantities of the agents that are needed to produce what you want. Basically, I mean, you can't continually cook new rice if you run out of rice. Okay, you still have to bring in new rice, bring in new rice, bring in new rice in order to produce whatever food product. Same thing with chemical reactions. You need to bring in new amounts of the substrate, or there's nowhere and no way the chemical reaction can proceed, and in this case, produce ATP.
So using the rice analogy, how would water compare to ATP, or what would be the rice and what would be the water?
Actually, I wasn't even anticipating that, but I think in this particular little example, uh, water would be the electrons. Okay, water would be the electrons. Okay, we're we're bringing in rice and processing it, and the water is fluffing up the rice and moving along. So roughly, I would equate it in that way. So now then, getting down to the more specifics is this electron transport chain has basically four stages or four sites. The first site is called uh, nicotinamide, NAD, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. Lots of people are familiar with this these days because it spawned a whole new generation of supplements, supplementing NAD, supplementing NAD precursors, et cetera, et cetera. And why is NAD important? Well, aside from the rest of the transport chain, it's been very well shown that when you take in large amounts, or when you produce or take in large amounts of NAD, you get a lot of energy inside the brain and inside the mitochondria. It's just, and throughout the body, but we see it especially prominently in the brain, all right? And you were talking about how you lit up with a methylene fluid. That's all part of this. The thing is let me sidestep that, for example, to show you how important NAD is in the 1960s and 70s, Dr. Abram Hoffer, who was a orthomolecular psychiatrist. All right. Now, Dr. Hoffer treated all the different psychiatric diseases, and he treated lots of schizophrenia. Now, almost everybody, certainly anybody that has the slightest relationship to the healthcare field, knows that how horrible schizophrenia is, how completely untreatable it is, and how it totally devastates families and everybody around them. Well, Dr. Hoffer found that by giving 6 to 7 to 8 grams of niacin or niacinamide, along with some vitamin C, he was able to completely cure, C-U-R-E, cure most of the chronic schizophrenics that he was dealing with. That's how significant these sources of NAD were to supplying energy to the brain. Now, niacin is vitamin B3, and niacinamide is what's called a vitamer, a closely related substance to vitamin B3. Both of them avidly produce NAD. Okay, so both of them are strong precursors to NAD. So the more you take in of those, the more you're reliably increasing your NAD levels. Now, is there anything wrong with just supplementing NAD? No, but it's another thing to take. It's generally speaking a substantially more expensive supplement when you take it in that form, whereas the niacin and the niacinamide are quite inexpensive. I favor the niacinamide because the niacin has something called a flush, and it causes a hot, sometimes burning sensation in people that take it. They say you get over it after a while. Well, some people do, some people don't. But a lot of people, once they try and they get turned off by it, then they sort of lose faith in the whole process. So I just go straight to the niacinamide.
Do you lose anything when you do that? Is there any benefit to having the B3 versus niacinamide?
Well, good question. Niacin has positive factors on your lipid metabolism. So It can lower cholesterol. It can lower some of the bad cholesterol fats, etc. So, and that particular characteristic is not possessed by niacinamide. So that is a significant difference.
Okay.
With regard to the NAD, no difference. So taking large amounts of niacinamide, vitamin 3, Vitamer as they're called, keeps the NAD level high. Then you have the second stage of the electron transport chain where the NAD passes the electron down to the next stage, which is called FAD, which is flavin adenine dinucleotide. As it turns out, vitamin B2, riboflavin, is a powerful precursor to the FAD. So large amounts of niacinamide, large amounts of riboflavin, and you keep the first two stages fueled very vigorously. The third stage is a very interesting stage. It's coenzyme Q10 by itself, which not only serves to receive the electrons, but by unclear mechanisms that leads to a biochemical insophisticate like myself, feeds back into the first two stages and helps fuel them as well. So coenzyme Q10 is super important in not only being the third stage of the electron transport chain, but in keeping the first two stages, shall we say, upregulated. Then you get to the fourth stage, which is cytochrome C oxidase. Now, that's not important to understand what those words mean. Other than that, it's the fourth stage that receives the electron. And when you're able to get the electron to it, it then finally is ready to shuttle the electron down to ATP synthase and make a lot of ATP. Now, as it turns out, what powerfully, very powerfully, goes straight to the fourth stage, skips the first three stages, is methylene blue. Methylene blue, incredibly enough, is extremely well absorbed, has been well documented, for example, to be even more avidly taken up in the brain and central nervous system than elsewhere in the body, although it goes everywhere. It just has even a little bit of a predilection for the central nervous system. And almost like an arrow, goes straight to the fourth step of the electron transport chain inside the mitochondria and donates an electron and allows the production of ATP without even invoking the first three steps. Okay, so it, because you got to remember too, anytime you do something positive in a chemical reaction, you're still generating some oxidative stress to do it. So this way, the methylene blue, and this is another reason why the methylene blue helps so many people by itself, even without taking the other three. I recommend taking them all, but even without taking the other three, methylene blue will really snap a lot of people, not everybody, out of their depression, out of their non-specific central nervous system conditions. I mean, you name it, not just physical problems, but emotional problems and mental problems. I mean, it's all generated in the same oxidatively stressed brain. Okay. So the methylene blue does that, does it very effectively. And when you take all four of them together, I mean, I think I told you this myself. I was on the first four for many, many, many years, and I increased the dose substantially and got to a level of everyday feeling good that I hadn't felt before. And then when I came along with the methylene blue, even before I did the other three, even before I did the the niacinamide and the riboflavin and the coenzyme Q10, I was doing methylene blue, and that single-handedly just upregulated my brain function like I can't describe. So for me, it's been a very powerful positive agent, and I've had similar feedback from just about anybody that gives me feedback. And you got to remember, pretty much people that don't do well give you feedback, and most of your feedback is from them. Haven't had any of that feedback. Of what feedback I do get, it's all been positive.
Yeah.
So these things together, so then this ultimately allows you to optimize the redox status, the reduction oxidation status inside your cell. When you're able to bring yourself down to what's called a physiologically normal level of intracellular biochemical oxidation. I mean, you're always going to have some oxidized cells, all right?
Mhm.
So oxidation doesn't mean disease. Excess oxidation definitely is disease. So it's that balance you're looking for, and that's what these supplements do.
Brilliant. Did you come up with this on your own, or did you look at the science and put them together by yourself, or did you other people that you work with also are using these combinations?
No, I my memory. So I sometimes wonder if somebody told me something or if I just thought of it. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I know I sat down at some point in time and said, well, this electron transport chain is really important for making ATP, and I know how important ATP is. So let me examine each step, go through the literature, and find out what optimizes the amount of each step. And another important thing to remember too is the false security of multivitamin, multimineral products. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, those can be very cost effective for a lot
Hmm.
of people to get
Yeah.
some of a lot of very important things. So I'm not saying what I'm about to say doesn't mean if you're taking a multivitamin, multimineral, don't take it. I'm just saying don't be misled into believing too much that is taking care of all your supplement needs. For example, the niacin or the niacinamide, multivitamin or multimineral
So
might
little.
be 20, 15, 20 milligrams. And I'm talking about you're taking several thousand milligrams.
Hmm.
For the riboflavin, the number two, uh, you might see in these formulas 4 or 5 milligrams, and I'm talking about taking 400. So uh, don't think that, oh, well, I have everything in here that my electron transport chain needs, like Dr. Levy talked about. I don't need to take this. No, you're just you're not listening to what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Now, is it better to have that than to take nothing? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that again comes to what we talk about the cost effectiveness. I mean, everything's expensive these days, and I don't minimize anybody's economic situation or their
Yeah.
ability to get one thing versus another. It's all expensive. So I'm saying it's important for people to say, well, that's fine and good what Dr. Levy's saying. I can't afford that. Well, just because you can't do the whole thing at optimal doses doesn't mean you shouldn't do part of it. And that's what I break down, not to minimize anything's important, but I mean, most people should be able to afford a few grams of vitamin C, a few grams of magnesium. Vitamin D3 is very cheap, and methylene blue, quite inexpensive.
Yeah, another thing that went up because um, with Epstein-Barr recurrence, and I've talked about this in the classroom with cancer coaches like Ellen Jacobs. She said that most everybody, not everybody who has Epstein-Barr has cancer, but most everybody who has cancer has Epstein-Barr. And what Epstein-Barr does is it stops the function of our natural body destroying the cancer. We our what is it, our T cells or killer cells just go and gobble it up and we don't get cancer. But when you have that reoccurrence of Epstein-Barr, it kind of cloaks over things so the cells can't function the way they normally do. And when she said that, that clicked in me. That clicked that if I have one of the things that they also have done a study on is that people that have cancer have low vitamin D. And so I noticed that the virus level, the early antigen testing that they did, kept going up. And instead of down, it kept going up. It was at 90 and then it went up to 150. And when 3 weeks later, after starting your protocol, it went down to 85.6. Now, this is me. Dr. Levy is not giving you any medical advice, nor am I telling you to do this. I feel that you should do your own research and do it, get your doctor's advice or whatever. I chose to do this not because Dr. Levy told me to do it. He's not practicing medicine on me. He is just a friend who is sharing such great information. So now that I got that over the way, Although you're an attorney, Dr. Levy, I don't know if I said anything that I should have said or not said. But anyway, the thing is here is that I saw my vitamin D levels going down too. And I thought, man, I am opening myself up along with stressful, stresses in life that we have, just living, just the everyday stresses in life, maybe other things that are happening. And I'm thinking, whoa, I'd rather be preventative and do something, like what you're proposing for me. And I didn't say this to you. So I went from the last vitamin D level that I did was 48, but I'm taking 5,000 I use every day. And 5,000, I should be like at 80 or at 90 or whatever. And it was at 48 and it just kept going down and down. So between the numbers going up for Epstein-Barr, the early antigen, and then also the D going down, I thought this is a warning. And I hope that everybody decides that they'll check as well to see if this is something that's happening in the body. Because then we get caught off guard and say, oh, our body failed us. No, our body was doing exactly what it was telling us to do. If we're not paying attention, then something worse could happen. So with that in mind, I have been, really taking a look. My numbers went from 48 in 3 weeks to 78. Now I increased it to 10,000, but I was doing 5,000 and it was going down. So that's another thing. You have to do more supplements during this time because your body isn't absorbing as much. Is that has that something that you've known all along, or is this something that has been discovered as time has
Well,
gone by?
nearly all quality supplements have their own antioxidant activity. So they have a nutrient function at the molecular level. A nutrient in your diet metabolizes down
Hmm.
to an antioxidant, and a toxin in your diet metabolizes down to something that oxidizes. So the chemical structures are different. They go different places. They do different things. But overall, in any particular thing, you're looking at where am I optimizing my antioxidant function? And so, yes, it makes a lot of sense because regardless of your condition, your disease, whatever it might be, and regardless of your supplementation regimen, the more entrenched your disease is, the more your oxidative stress is, and the more that oxidative stress is going to uh, you oxidize and use up the nutrients that you take. So it follows perfectly that your nutrient intake is going to be, or the nutrient intake that you need is going to be increased by the amount of disease and oxidative stress that you're dealing with. So I have never particularly tested exactly what you said, but it makes perfect sense.
Okay. Well, I was pleased that at least my body is going in the right direction. The early antigen tests that says that I have active Epstein-Barr virus recurrence is going down and my D levels are going up. So I was thrilled. Another thing that I wanted to ask, I wanted to go back with the NAD, which is the thing that you were saying that you can take the supplement or the body will do it naturally if you take the B3, which is the niacin. I was taking NAD as part of the protocol that I was on before
Mhm.
along with other things. And it's expensive. It really was expensive to bring it down to 8 super supplements that you call super supplements. I'm gonna be able to do more things in life because of the supplementation cost has gone down. Now, so with that in mind, if I am taking niacin, should I also take NAD or can I just say, stop doing this right now because I really don't need it?
No, there's no need to take the NAD. Take adequate doses of the niacin or the niacinamide.
Can it hurt it if I'm doing both? Will it hurt?
No, no,
I
no,
just have very expensive urine.
exactly.
Okay. I just want to make sure of that. Is there anything else that we need to know? Because, there's so many like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome. There's so many things that are treated as a disease that I believe, just like Epstein-Barr was giving me exhaustion and, like that symptom of Epstein-Barr, the recurrence of that virus. I was feeling low energy, my hormones were plummeting, vitamin D was plummeting, all these things, and all these other numbers are going up. Could it be that what we call a dis-ease is a body giving you like symptoms, speaking to you so that you can do preventative medicine and say, okay, let me do my blood work. What are some of the blood work that someone can do? Like I've got a health coach that's a doctor that he calls himself my health coach. And he works with me and he focuses on particular targeted, but is there like a blood work test that people can look at and say, oh, all these things combined together, I'm putting my body at risk. I need to start taking these Super 8, or should I just start taking the Super 8 and see my body improve?
I think that's the first and easiest step. Okay. And to a great degree, if you take the Super 8 and you've been on it for a long enough period of time, it's going to make your lab profile that much better. And you may not know, but it will save you several blood tests that you didn't really need to take. All right. I mean, if you want to absolutely obviously document everything, and of course, blood testing is very expensive as well. All right. I mean, yeah, you start out and you try to see what differences are made down the road with different interventions, but that's brain consuming and money consuming and a lot of aggravation. It's a whole lot better, I think, for most people to first see how well they do on something before getting caught up into let's document precisely what's happening with the blood work. Now, on the other hand, if you're really feeling great, that doesn't mean you should never do blood work as well, because your best chance of catching almost any condition early is when a certain blood test starts getting out of the normal range. All right. Your blood tests are going to become abnormal to some degree long before you feel abnormal. So that's the sequence of events. All right. You don't suddenly feel bad and have normal blood work the day before. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. And so, but is there a particular, like for me, looking at D and right now focusing on the early antigen, bringing down, because there's like 4 tests that they do. One says, yes, I have the virus. I've had the virus in the past. Another one, there's like 3 others that are actually showing how active it is at the current moment. And you want that early antigen to be like almost at 0. So I've definitely got a long way to go, and I'm going to continue monitoring. So I'm my own little petri dish. I'm my little test tube baby here. I'll keep everybody posted on this because I feel that Dr. Levy, you've stumbled upon something huge. Because if somebody that's watching today or listening in podcast later on, that if they are been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, or they've been diagnosed with, all these other conditions that are, coming up, that they call it a disease. Do you believe that doing this will help with ATP production and help the mitochondria health, reverse it, and start getting better?
Yes, I think everything indicates that this supplement protocol increases your intracellular vitamin C level and optimizes ATP in every cell in your body. Now, if you're optimizing the antioxidant status in every cell in your body, all diseases are going to get better. Doesn't matter. And I've actually had a couple cases. It's not like something I specialize in. I've never actually heard of it before, that had sudden deafness in one ear. And when they got on the supplement regimen, it was back in a week or two. I mean, I mean, stuff like that's pretty frightening when it happens. Yeah, well, I actually once was with my wife, and another circumstance with someone else, and with my wife, she was already doing pretty good supplementation. wasn't on the whole regimen. So that's another thing where I really have so much increased confidence when you add the electron transport chain ATP support. Then things really start really magical start happening. I've never had anybody yet give me negative feedback, but I've gotten positive feedback
Yeah.
uh,
I was
all over
stunned.
the place.
3 weeks. 3 weeks is when I retested, and every doctor said to me that my practitioner, because they're a nurse practitioner, doctorate in nurse practitioner, his said to me, normally we don't test this soon after your previous blood test, but let's check it out. I just wanted to see because I just wanted to see if I was going in the right direction. I've just had this thing about methylene blue, and thank God Dr. Levy gave me an option this time because he was talking about taking it with V8 and tomato sauce. And I'm like, yeah, no, I am not good with that yet. So finally, we know the student is ready, the teacher appears, and I was listening and taking notes and started doing it right away. And that's what happens in the classroom. This is where we learn and we grow together. And I don't want you to think that my life is perfect in any way, in the sense that I still need to make sure that I'm eating well and do the right thing. So I want to encourage all of you to figure out what your truth is. What works best for you may not work best for me, but I'm just sharing what's working for me right now. And I'm looking forward to my next test. So go to whenyounneedafriend.com. While you're at whenyounneedafriend.com, please subscribe to the website. That's how you know Dr. Levy's information. And when you are there, make sure you like and follow me on social media, YouTube, Facebook, BitChute, also podcast. For those of you who love podcasts, love to listen, don't want to see the people, just want to listen, then go ahead and be a part of, part of that by subscribing and liking. You can also go to my sponsors page. Check out all the sponsors that are supporting the classroom and support them the way that they are supporting us. And you can also go to my Shop Now bag. The Shop Now bag has all these Lilly approved products to help improve your life. Some of these products are affiliate products and they help contribute to the classroom, just a small amount. It's not that much. So we still need all of you to support, whether you're an enrolled student in the classroom, if you can donate whatever you can, $1, $1,000 a month, a one-time donation, whatever the case might be, whether it's your time, your talent, your treasure, sharing this video with your friends, your family, on your Facebook page or on YouTube, link it to your YouTube, whatever it is. Please do that, because that will help with the algorithms. Once you do that, the algorithms cannot touch you. So we need as much generation, as much activity in the classroom. So we need your help. Please help with all of that. We also have Dr. Levy in the classroom, who, if you go to tomlevymd.com, that's tomlevymd.com. If you are a subscriber, you already have all his information. All you need to do is click on the link, and it will take you there. Now, Dr. Levy, are you okay with me if anybody wants to text me or email me that they want this supplement, the Super 8? Is it okay for me to share that with people?
Of course.
Okay, so for those of you, and just know that because if you would like a copy of it, I'll send it to you. But also subscribe to Dr. Levy's website, Tom
And
Levy,
so
MD.
people don't get confused. I put together a sheet of paper on the Super 8 protocol, but it's proposed and presented as a treatment for persistent spike protein
Correct.
from,
Let's
okay.
talk a little bit
But
more about that too, because there's a lot of people that are getting sicker and sicker, and their
but the point
illnesses are
is
lasting
that's a
longer.
very grievous thing, and if it can make that better, you can well imagine it makes everything else better.
Yeah, share a little bit about that for people that have long COVID or long haulers, whatever they want to call it. We only have like 5 minutes left in the classroom here, but can you share a little bit about how, so even though it's on there as that, there, because it helps COVID, you're saying that it's going to help a lot of other things too.
Right, absolutely. I mean, there's probably nothing more difficult to manage right now, and for the most part, not well managed at all, is people who had COVID, but most of the people who got multiple vaccinations, they have a chronic, persistent, what's called spike protein, if not in their blood, then deep in their tissues. And it's not only toxic, but it's also toxic that replicates itself. I mean, what could be worse than a toxin that's continually increasing its manifestation? I mean, it'd be horrible, for example, you get a big dose of mercury, all right, highly toxic. But what would be worse than that? What would be worse than that would be a big dose of mercury that could continue reproducing itself inside your body and making more mercury all the time. And that's sort of the analogy here with the spike protein, is it keeps on producing itself. So we have a lot of different ways. Some people get a lot better. Some people resolve completely. Others just improve but can't quite get over the hump. We have some things evolving right now that I think are going to, well, have been shown to completely cure chronic COVID and the persistent spike protein, but it's getting a little problematic getting it out there. It has to be a special machine, a special blood treatment. But the fact of the matter is, we have some things evolving that the vast majority of the time, 90% of the time, resolves chronic COVID and persistent spike protein with one or two treatments.
Very good. And I think that people are listening up all over the world about this, because I've noticed people that have had the shot or very just had the virus over and over again, and it just stays longer and longer, and they have a persistent cough, or I'm like, let me send you this protocol so that you can get started. But in this protocol that you have the actual milligram suggestions for each person, and which is great. And also, you
And let me say
suggest.
this, those are starting dose recommendations. All 8 of those are very, very, very non-toxic, and you should feel free to push the dose up on any one or any combination or all of the 8, depending on your feedback with your body and your economic capacity to take and afford larger doses. But don't feel like you're locked into that dose range. These are highly non-toxic supplements that really support a lot of different positive things in your body, and you can feel free to push
Yeah.
forward on the doses.
Yeah, I remember Dr. Andrew Saul, God rest his soul, but when he would come in the classroom, he'd talk about how, people are afraid of high dose vitamin C, or they're afraid of high dose vitamin B3, or whatever that helps with reversing schizophrenia. And he said, but nobody cares about all these drugs that are killing people taken right for the right reason. Nobody makes a big deal about that. And he says there's not one case. They've gone back, and there's not one case of people dying from vitamin C overdose, unless they're dehydrated and they're not doing things properly. There's other things that could cause a reaction. But he was like, he would just get so frustrated about when he'd talk about that. Just absolutely love him. Now, in this article that you have, this flyer that I can give for you if you guys want to, or you can go to Dr. Levy's website, and you can just click on his name and it'll take you to his site. You also have biooxidative therapies like vitamin C infusion, hydrogen peroxide infusion, ozone auto hemotherapy, ozone therapy, ultraviolet blood irradiation, and hyperbaric oxygen. So those are things, and of course, hydrogen peroxide nebulization. Let's always remember that one. Those are just wonderful ways that we can return our body back to health. Any final words to someone just tuning in right now before we go about, still being fearful about all these supplements?
Well, you certainly shouldn't be fearful of the supplements. I mean, if you're not, as you sort of pointed out, if you're not fearful of the prescription drugs that you're taking, you should just feel wonderful about any supplement you take. I mean, yeah, anybody can have a reaction to anything. I'm not saying that, but supplements don't kill. Prescription drugs do.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's a great final word. I'm just like, and we're not saying don't take your prescription drugs. We're not saying that. We're just saying that there's other ways to help your body remain in a healthy state. And mitochondrial health is so important. And I am so grateful that I called you and that you were so willing, as always, to help me. And so I was happy to make that call and happy to have you here to share the good news that, sometimes our body just needs something, and if not listening to the right people, we'll continue depleting the body of what it needs. And so I'm thankful and grateful to you, Dr. Levy, that you are the cheese that stands alone sometimes, but man, do you taste good. Whatever you're saying is always so good. So thank you so much for being in the classroom today and sharing your wisdom with all of us.
My pleasure, as always.
And please remember, you're in choice. Do your research. Don't believe a word we're saying, but do your research. And remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Thomas Levy wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job. Good job.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.